Hello? Hello?
All right, we are live now here at 5 o'clock with Freed. We're on with my good friend Mark Lamb, who is the attorney for the lawsuit against Jay Inslee. Mark, can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yes, I can. So, Mark, we are on Facebook Live right now, and so we'll just wait maybe a couple minutes as people join, and then we can jump into a little bit of our conversation.
Fantastic.
Good. Well, it's happy that it's a Friday. That's for sure. We get to enjoy the weekend.
It is a beautiful, beautiful day.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let me just check on something here, Mark, and make sure all is good and well. Yeah, it looks like we're good to go. All right, so everyone, thanks for joining us this Friday. We're excited. I'm on with my good friend of 20 years, Mark Lamb, who's my attorney, who's been representing me in the lawsuit against Jay Inslee and the violation of our constitutional rights when it comes to religious liberties. Mark and I have been talking about this for weeks, I would say, and we were waiting for some others just to bring it and say, we're seeing these constitutional rights being taken away. And through a series of conversations, Mark and I decided that now was the time to bring this lawsuit forward. So today we had a hearing, which was as a result of a request for a temporary restraining order. So basically, Mark, I'll try to explain it, then you'll correct me. But 2 weeks ago, we filed a lawsuit in federal court against Jay Inslee in his professional role as governor. And the reason why is because we saw that our religious liberties are being violated under the First Amendment of our U.S. Constitution. So we filed that suit in federal court. A week ago, we filed for a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order. And that's a very narrow request. So basically, our lawsuit is broad. Our temporary restraining order was extremely narrow, saying Joshua Freed just wants to meet individually with somebody in his front yard to pray and read the Bible, 6 feet apart, everyone bringing their PPE and making sure that they're keeping themselves at a safe distance and honoring the stay safe type of directives from the government. And we gave the opportunity to the Attorney General and to the governor to say that they could say, no, we're wrong on this. You have the opportunity to meet today, yet they failed to respond. And ultimately, they came back with 146 pages saying that, no, you do not have the rights to pray in your front yard. An individual cannot go pray with their spiritual leader anywhere in the state of Washington. You can go golfing, you can go fishing, you can go to Walmart, but you cannot. So they argued this for the last 2 weeks with 146 pages. And then we got to our hearing today at 1:30. Mark, that was my setup. Do you want to take it from there and correct me for any misstatements I made?
Yeah, no, you got it exactly right. I mean, what happened today is that what we had asked both the court and the governor is we had said, look, one of two things can happen. You can either acknowledge that your order, you will not enforce your order with respect to Joshua, or for a TRO it would have been just for you, but it became broader when they made this concession on the record in federal court that they will not enforce it with respect to gatherings of two people for prayer or reading the Bible. And that concession is one that they had resisted tooth and nail having to make. They spent 146 pages, as you said, trying to argue around why they shouldn't have to make that concession. And today in court, it took 3 tries until the judge finally pinned them down and said, look, you have to tell me as the chief law enforcement officer of the state of Washington, will you direct local law enforcement to enforce this order against Mr. Freed, and it would be equally applied to somebody similarly situated to you if they just want to meet with someone in their yard and read and pray the Bible. And man, it was like pulling teeth, but their lawyers said, no, we will not. Well, Josh, I mean, it could seem like a small thing, but that's really a game changer. That is the first legal challenge to the governor's order, and it resulted in the governor admitting to a federal judge on the record in open court that order is not enforceable as to the total blanket ban on religious gatherings. As you indicated earlier, the suit is broader than that and is seeking to say, what everybody knows is common sense, which is if people take social distancing seriously, if they're able to wash their hands, if they, or stand apart from other people, should they be able to practice their core constitutional liberties? And what's important is that when the governor is confronted with these questions, as he was when 2,000 people gathered at the state capitol exercising their First Amendment political rights, he's backed down. And he didn't say like, I'm going to cite you or, you're going to be arrested. He said, I welcome you and I support the First Amendment. Today, we had the same result. And I think what we're learning is that the governor who is governing by fiat, is governing by executive order. He doesn't have to go to the legislature. When he is confronted with the courts and he is confronted with our Constitution, he has been forced to acknowledge that this order is unenforceable. And that is, I think, today is a really, really good day for the Constitution. And it's a really good day for the people of Washington State to be able to question our leaders and to be able to say when they do something that is overreach, to say this is a bridge too far. And today we forced the governor to admit that it was a bridge too far, his order with respect to one-on-one meetings is not enforceable. And I would argue that what they conceded today is broader than that. I mean, it raises really the question of whether they would enforce against any religious gathering. I mean, like, for example, now in the new drive-in service orders, they said, well, you can't have communion. I would be very surprised if the governor would actually enforce that if push came to shove, or if he was found himself in front of a federal judge again. So it seems like the governor, through this process, has been constrained and has had to learn that there is a Constitution and that no one person is able, our Constitution isn't suspended. We are in a state of emergency, but the Constitution is still in force and it hasn't been suspended. So I really applaud you for having the courage and being the one to understand the legal process, because anybody can file a lawsuit, but the worst possible thing to do in this environment is to file a lawsuit against Inslee and to lose, and to have the sort of radical and sweeping emergency powers that he has taken, in my belief, in First Amendment areas, in contravention of the Constitution, to have those upheld because the lawsuit is poorly drafted or overly ambitious or too broad. Then you establish precedent that can say that Inslee could do this another time. And I don't think we're out of the woods on the potential for future states of emergency as well. So you were very smart and very strategic in the way you brought this lawsuit, and congratulations. It was a good win today.
Well, I have a dear friend and a man of great wisdom that can be in the battle with me. There was a couple things that hit me as we were on that phone call and the hearing. And folks that are listening right now, I'm on with Mark Lamb. He's our attorney with the lawsuit against Jay Inslee. And he was on the front lines this morning for all of us, advocating for our rights, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, to be able to participate in your I'll say meeting with your spiritual leader, participating in spiritual activities in person. Mark, today, when the judge pressed the attorney general and said, your client, who is the governor, is the leading law enforcement person of the land, and he said, does he have the right? Will he be enforcing if people are meeting to participate in Bible study or prayer? And his answer was no. I thought it was interesting that he directly called out the attorney general and pointed to that Governor Inslee is the leading law enforcement officer of the land. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was interesting because the governor's attorney, who is a super smart guy, I mean, like everyone, he's widely reported to be the smartest person in the attorney general's office. The attorney who was arguing for the governors said, well, that would really be an issue for the city of Bothell, and I don't even know who would make that complaint, and it's a complaint-driven system. And the judge said, yeah, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking whether your client, the governor, as a chief law enforcement of the officer of the state of Washington, would order local law enforcement to enforce this against a situation like Mr. Freed, which is in the backyard, doing Bible study, doing prayer. And that was exactly the question that I had put to the governor's attorney over 2 weeks ago in an email at your request, and that she had never responded to, that she had just completely ignored. And at the same time, she's corresponding with journalists. Again, she's a very bright attorney, very smart person. they were deliberately evading the question because they didn't want to answer it. They didn't want to say, of course not. And that's the reality is, when they got that email, the first thing they should have said is, of course not. Of course, we're not going to prosecute somebody for praying in their backyard with one other person. That's absurd. Like, why would you even ask that question? But that's not what our governor said. Our governor's attorney didn't say that. They fell silent. And then, a week and a half later, they filed this ridiculous response of like 146 pages of a kabuki dance to avoid answering a simple yes or no question. And then it took a federal judge. It took us to, expend all these resources to go to federal court to force them to admit what they should have admitted at the beginning. I mean, this never should have been this never should have had to have gone to a federal judge. But the reality is, I'm glad it did. And it reveals something about the character of the people who are currently running this emergency, that it had to go to a federal judge. But I'm glad it did, and I'm glad we were able to get the result where he was compelled to admit in open court that it's not enforceable.
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing throughout the last 6 to 7 weeks that Inslee's been acting like a bully through all this. He's saying if you're out trying to go to work, if it's a non-essential job, you're killing your grandparents, or to the parents out there, if your kids are out on the sidewalk, you should write them out of the will. And if they don't listen to you, tell them the governor's going to talk to them. That's not the way to lead a state. You paint a vision, say the good reason with scientific backing on why we need to do this. And really, it all turned. We were all under a voluntary action just 7 weeks ago. And then 3 weeks ago, it all changed when he said, we want you to start calling in on your neighbor if you see them going to their non-essential job. And if people are going to non-essential jobs, we're going to take away their business license. So he really is trying to bully people around. And I've seen this throughout this court case. I mean, 146 pages to say you don't have the right to go worship or pray or to have a Bible study, even with one individual. I mean, that's totally coming from a position of power. He was hoping that we were going to blink or back down. But thanks to your counsel, we're going to persevere. We're going to go right to the judge. And the judge saw right through it today. And I really felt he put the attorney general on task.
Yeah, he was a very thoughtful judge, and he did a really good job today.
Yeah, we have hundreds of people on with us right now. And so you can imagine we have a lot of questions as well, Mark. So I wanted to throw a couple out there if you're ready for them.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
One person actually he is a father of 12, and he says that right now, even the drive-in order is illegal for my 12-person family to worship God. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's absurd. I mean, I think it's totally ridiculous. And I think what we learned today is that the governor's not going to enforce that order. I mean, I think what you did, Joshua, was to expose that in this case, the emperor doesn't have any clothes. It's not, he's saying things that are blatantly unconstitutional and unenforceable. So I think if you have a 12-person family and you want to worship together, go worship together. And that's because of what we learned today in federal court because of Josh's lawsuit.
Yeah, it's interesting. They were trying to say for the last several weeks, well, you can have Bible study, but they weren't making the differentiation with Bible study versus, or they said you could have counseling, biblical counseling, but you can't have a Bible study. Today, they caved on that, said they don't have the right.
No.
And they're not going.
Yeah, I mean, you could pray, you could sing, you could do it with two people. It's as long as you're practicing social distancing, this artificial distinction of therapy versus prayer versus Bible reading that the governor's order was trying to purport to has been shattered.
Yep. So a couple of the questions here lead to a couple news agencies, some fake news out there said that we dropped our lawsuit. That's not the case at all for those folks that are listening. The lawsuit is still ongoing. What we had said we're going to step away from would be the temporary restraining order of just me meeting individually with one other person. We've got a greater victory than that today. Mark, do you want to explain truly what victory we got?
Yeah, so a temporary restraining order, it's important to understand, is something that you get briefly that is a very narrow remedy. And the other side has to be opposing you. The other side has to be saying, no, I don't want to give you that relief. And so, once the governor conceded that we were right, the need for a temporary restraining order goes away because he said he's not going to enforce it. So I think, and as I said to you before the hearing, I was like, if they do that, that's a much broader. A temporary restraining order would have been just for you, Joshua Freed, in your backyard to do this. By them saying we will not enforce this back, one-on-one prayer meetings, one-on-one Bible study in this context, we would not order law enforcement to take it. That applies to the entire state of Washington. And that concession is much, much more significant than it would have been had they, foolishly persisted in this line of reasoning and tried to resist this through a federal judge.
Yeah, and it even goes deeper than that, because they consider that you can get together in group counseling. And so the whole point, they're saying now spiritual activities, meaning Bible study and prayer, are under their definition of counseling, which is interesting. But they said that those activities are permissible. Okay. And so some people are saying, well, is it really limited to just 10? Can you comment on that? Or limited to 2?
I think that's going to be an interesting thing to see. I mean, I don't know. Again, my sense of today's hearing is I would be deeply surprised if the governor enforced anything in the religious realm. I think they realize their position on that is constitutionally untenable. So that's it. Yeah. Hey, Joshua, and I apologize. I've got to head out. But did you have one last question, or was there?
What does this mean for churches? Would be the biggest question.
So people can meet in small groups in churches, and it will not be enforced against it. I mean, I think larger practices of the kind that are the course of our lawsuit, I think we're going to have to determine. But I think as time progresses, this is an incremental fight. Today we won a victory, and tomorrow we'll move on to the next one.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for your help.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Take care.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
So folks that are still on here, that was Mark Lamb. He was the attorney for our lawsuit against Jay Inslee. Today we had victory against Bob Ferguson and Jay Inslee to make sure that our constitutional rights are preserved. So you heard that, a little bit of clarity to Mark, that we have the right today to meet individually and have Bible study. We can go meet with our spiritual leader. Jay Inslee recognized that he does not have the power to stop us from doing so. Even for the last 7 to 8 weeks, he's been bullying you in that position, trying to boast that he had more power than he has. And I think this really makes him clearly vulnerable in all the other directives that he had. And why am I so passionate on this? Because he moved from having this be a voluntary action where we're all complying, saying we know that this is good, to stay safe, stay home, keep some distancing. But then when he starts saying, we're going to have you as neighbors call in on your neighbors and make sure that they're going to get arrested or have penalties or take away their business license, that's not what a leader does. That's not what Washington needs. Under Jay Inslee's Washington, he says you could go to a pot shop or a liquor store. You can go meet with your financial advisor or your stockbroker. But when it came to, if the topic of the conversation was prayer, Bible study, studying the Quran or the Torah, he says no, off the table. We have a clear separation of church and state. We should never have a state that says you need to believe in this certain religion, nor should we ever have a state that says you and your faith can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. That's what we're fighting against. So for me, this is not just me and my own personal faith fighting for what I believe, but it's fighting for people of all different faiths, saying we have the right to participate in our own beliefs without the interference of the government. And so today we had that major victory with the governor recognizing that he is an emperor with no clothes. He's been acting as a king, but he doesn't have the power for the directives that he's been throwing out there. So does that make him vulnerable when he comes to declaring essential and non-essential? I would say absolutely. Where he cannot come out with arbitrary declarations that, for instance, construction that is publicly funded is essential, but construction that is not publicly funded is non-essential. He can't say that big box stores that sell underwear, t-shirts, and groceries are essential, yet other stores that sell maybe just underwear, maybe just shirts, or maybe just ties are not essential. I mean, it's small box versus big box stores. And clearly he has no science that says in Walmart or Target or Costco, you're not going to get the virus. But if you go to Zoomies, you're going to get the virus somehow. So he does not use data. He does not use science. He's using his own directives when it comes to, I believe, his own personal investments. Look at some of his investments in Microsoft and Boeing and some of these other larger companies that he's declared essential from the very beginning. And then these smaller stores, my goodness, landscapers, beauticians, they don't have large, well-connected lobbyists in Olympia. They're not the powerful and well-connected. Jay Inslee continues to advocate for those who politically contributed to them, and he's letting those folks who most need the help not have it. So my screen is glitching out just slightly, and it seems that there is a delay. And my hope is that you're hearing all that I am saying. Okay. So stick with me, folks. Thank you so much for all of you that are on here. I'm going to jump into a couple different questions. So is this a victory for one-on-one prayer? Absolutely, it is a victory. It is a massive victory. For the last 2 weeks, Jay Inslee has been fighting us in court. Bob Ferguson has been fighting us in court. Today, they blinked. They backed down. They hoped that we, the people, would blink and back down and just become subservient slaves, listening to arbitrary directives from on high. He sits behind the walls of his mansion, which is truly our mansion, and he makes these directives to us. So let me just take one pause here because I'm seeing that our Facebook Live has ended. You guys aren't seeing that? All right, I'm seeing that. All right, I hope you guys are all still with me. Okay, so let me jump into a couple of questions. What does this mean for our churches? I think Mark Lamb answered that. We need to also be cautious as people who have a faith, right? Because there are people out there right now who truly do have a lot of fear. There are people that have died from COVID, and we're not being insensitive to that. You know, I'm a person who dearly cares for human life, and we need to make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe. This is not about going out and being reckless, and it's about making sure that we have the opportunity to participate in our constitutional rights. And so I'm fighting for that, making sure that we have those preserved. So right now, I would say you can go individually meet with a spiritual leader, a friend, and have Bible study. The governor has admitted he has no power to stop you from doing so. Also, I would say you can meet in small groups, and maybe bigger church comes in some time. But we have to also think about the optics of those folks who don't support religion. Obviously, 67% of people in Washington believe in God. 67%. So a vast majority call a relationship with God vital and essential to their life. Yet at the same time, obviously, there are some that don't. So we can talk to them and talk to them respectfully about our own personal faiths, and I encourage people to do so. But the reality is there are people with concerns and fear, and a lot of us don't have that deep-seated fear, but we want to live responsibly still, and we live in community. So let's be thoughtful and respectful of that. Let's see, Jackie Watkins also, okay, so if you have two friends and they have two friends and everyone is 6 feet apart, Bible study, can you have as many twos as you want? Jackie, from what I heard today is the governor does not have the power and will not be enforcing against spiritual gatherings. And I would say right now he's not preventing when it comes to group counseling, and he's considering anything happening under group counseling or spiritual counseling. He says that Bible studies can occur under that definition, which does not limit the number of people that gather. But still with that, I think there is a responsibility that we all have to make sure that we're still operating under social distancing guidelines, and making sure our hands are clean and wearing masks when appropriate, doing all the things that would make sure that the folks that are around us are safe as well. So discretion is advised, right? The federal judge forced the governor's attorney to admit that they can't enforce his rules. That's exactly right, Mike. Good point. And the federal judge was right on board with that. We gave the attorney general 2 weeks to truly answer. I've always felt that the best place to handle a suit is on the stairs of the courthouse, not in court. The attorney general waited until we were in federal court today. So in the courtroom, which was of course on the phone virtually, the judge pressed the attorney general and says, does your client truly have the ability to fight this? And they backed down and said, no. So they're not going to be enforcing our order. And yet for 7 weeks, we've been voluntarily acting under that, really because he threatened us. Even some bullying happened in Gig Harbor this last weekend, where the mayor of Gig Harbor and the police chief there were shutting down signature gathering for Referendum 90. Referendum 90 is so important. I'm happy to be a co-sponsor of Referendum 90. I'm super happy that my wife and I have joined to be one of the leading contributors to Referendum 90. And for the folks who don't know what that is our opportunity to fight the comprehensive sex education that has been pushed forward by the House, the Senate, and then signed in a photo op during the stay-at-home order by the governor. He felt it was so important that he wanted to have a camera come so he could sign into law that we could have comprehensive sex education for 5, 6, 7-year-old kids. And so please go sign Referendum 90. We have that ability to make sure that we can put comprehensive sex education back on the ballot in November, and we can vote it down. We have to protect our kids. We have to protect the most vulnerable. Jay Inslee is not caring about the most vulnerable. That has been obvious. Look at what's happened over the last 7 years of his reign of terror in Washington State, where, for instance, we have 23% increase in assaults on people on the streets, because as the drug culture increases, it costs $35,000 a year to support your heroin addiction. And so people are breaking into people's homes, stealing people's cars, assaulting them on the streets. And then the first responders, they're seeing a 40% increase on assaults on them. So when they're trying to enforce the law, they're getting attacked. Even the Seattle police chief said that her officers are feeling discouraged to do their job because they're not getting the backing from leaders in our state, from Jay Inslee, from Bob Ferguson, from folks in Seattle. Gets even deeper and darker than this. Murder has increased 41% under Jay Inslee. Rape has increased by 65% under Jay Inslee. These numbers are fully on his shoulders. He would love to reject them and push them away, just like he's been saying through this downturn. He wished this burden wasn't on his shoulders for the COVID crisis. He wishes it was on somebody else's. Well, I know that he thinks that riding around on Lear jets around the US running for president is far more exciting, but the reality is he said he was going to be governor of Washington State. So step aside, Governor. It's time for new leadership that's willing and clearly understanding that sometimes there are difficult times that we don't run away from, but we stick in there, and we certainly never wish them on somebody else's shoulders. A true leader says, give me your burdens. That's what we want to see, not pass them to somebody else. So crime is rampantly on the increase in Washington State, where even during this stay-at-home order, he took time to actually consider and then took action to release 950 prisoners from jail. And yet during that same week, he says, we will arrest you, we will fine you, and we will take away your business license. Oh, and by the way, take away your kid, take them out of the will if they're out on the sidewalk, but let the prisoners out of jail. That's your governor, folks. He only has to be there for a few more months. I certainly appreciate your vote. Please go to Joshua Freed or freedforgovernor.com. Go to Joshua Freed on Facebook or Freed for Governor on Twitter. We need your help. We have a battle ahead. There's a lot of work to do. On Monday, we're going to hit the state. We're going on a 14-day tour to all 39 counties in our state to take the message of freedom. Because to vote for freed is to truly vote for freedom. I'm asking for your support. You can certainly contribute to our campaign by going to our webpage at freedforgovernor.com. It takes a lot of money to run a campaign to get our message out there on radio and on TV and through print or online media. We need people that are willing to make phone calls for us and send texts out. We need people who are willing to host Zoom meetings or meet and greets in their house. But we love to see you on the tour. We have a lot of fun activities that are planned. So please go to freedforgovernor.com/tour, and you can see where we're going to be each week, each day. We're going to be in multiple different locations. We're going to be meeting on parking lots. We have some fun events that are planned. We ask you to join it. We have some golf tournaments that are coming up as well, several across the state, because I know that people want to get out. Listen, the most important thing, the most healthy thing through all of this stay-at-home order would have been to get outside. It's the easiest, most important lesson that was learned from the 1918 Spanish flu. Staying inside kills people. Look at, even Cuomo came out 2 days ago, apparently was shocked. He said, I can't believe it. Most of the cases are for people who stayed home. So 1918 Spanish flu said, get out. You got to be outside of the sun and the clean air. This is how we truly get to health. So let me just check if we got any more questions here. Megan says, given that Mark Lamb asked the question via email of the Attorney General and they ignored the question, will recovery of a court cost be on the table? That's a good question. I'll ask him that question. He's a great attorney and a good friend, so I know in billing he will be fair. Carol, did you withdraw your lawsuit? No, the underlying lawsuit is still ongoing. We are going to prove in court that Jay Inslee never ever had the ability. So it's important, right? There are multiple victories, and victories come in different ways. Victories today came in the admission from the Attorney General for his client, that his client, Jay Inslee, the leading law enforcement officer of the land, admits that he has no power to enforce his directives when it comes to spiritual gatherings. He cannot go break up your Bible study. He cannot go in and direct how you're doing church or your Bible study. He admitted he does not have that power. And so, but we want to show that in court. A judge will clearly rule, especially with the admittance of his own attorney, of the Attorney General online today, that they don't have the power for these directives. I'm looking forward to our day in court. Today was the temporary restraining order. We still will have a day in court when it comes to the underlying lawsuit that a governor does not have the ability to jump in with the separation of church and state. He doesn't have the power for the directives that he's been pushing on us for the last several weeks. So we are not removing our lawsuit. It is still standing, but today was a massive victory. Don't believe the fake news out there. Apparently Cairo News said we withdrew our lawsuit. Not true. They clearly are misunderstanding what happened today. And I know the Attorney General is going to spin this any which way he can. Listen, Bob Ferguson is not used to losing and having egg in his face, and clearly he did today. I'm the first to defeat Jay Inslee since Doc Hastings beat him on the east side of the mountains, then Jay Inslee carpetbagged over here in the 1st Congressional District. You know, politics is so much about timing, and Jay Inslee won the governorship 8 years ago, but the reality is now he's running for a 3rd term, and I think he's done a dismal job in Washington State. He has a negative 57% disapproval. He has only one county of 39 counties in Washington State that gives him a positive rating today. No surprise, it's King County. But yet, you look at what happens in King County, Pierce County, Snohomish County, we are going to win that battleground. We are looking good in our campaign. We've raised more money collectively than all of our other opponents in this race on the Republican side. I have 6 Republican opponents, and yet we've raised more than all 6 of them combined. We're fighting hard, and that's where we're heading out to the state. We're going to have a 14-day tour. Please join us on the tour, and then we're going to have a huge celebration, high noon on Memorial Day at the Capitol steps. Please come out at 12 o'clock, Memorial Day. Bring your kids, bring your family. It's going to be a fun event. I'm looking forward to see you at the Capitol. That is going to be where we stake our flag and declare that we will have victory on November 3rd. And then you're going to have a new governor come the beginning of January. You're going to be able to have a seat at the table where Jay Inslee has looked to political contributions to get your seat at the table. This is the governor that takes political contributions, millions of dollars, and then goes behind closed doors and negotiates contracts. Listen, even during this COVID crisis, we saw that he gave preferential treatment to his own family, to his own cousin, that said, hey, this guy provides PPE equipment. You may notice that his last name is Inslee. He said it in the email. It's unbelievable. So we are starting what is called Mask Gate, and we're going to take the mask off of what Jay Inslee has been hiding. Please join us, and we're going to be exposing his own investments. We're going to be exposing how he's compromised his decisions with his own pocketbook throughout this time. So Jay Inslee, I know you're watching. I know the folks that are on here support Jay Inslee. You guys have been watching me for a long time. The Democrat Governors Association notices that I am the #1 target. They constantly comment on me on their Twitter or their Facebook page. They know that Joshua Freed and Team Freed are on our way to the governor's mansion to make sure finally that mansion is a mansion for the people and not just for somebody that makes directives between high walls from his comfy rooms. So please continue to follow our campaign, and please put on your calendar high noon, which is 12 o'clock on Memorial Day at the Capitol. This is a great opportunity for you to come out and express that we live in freedom. So vote for Freed, vote for freedom. Let me look to a couple other questions here. This is fun, you guys. Are you asking for anything monetary in the suit, anything towards your council or the people? I'm not asking for a financial compensation for the government for this. No, absolutely not. Can it be more than 2? Can a small group of 10 or less? Just curious, Sylvia. That's how we read it today, that the Attorney General says that underneath the counseling, a spiritual counseling, that they're not limiting the amount of people that come, and they admitted that they're not going to be enforcing and don't have the power to enforce. Even the highest law enforcement officer of the land, Governor Inslee, does not have the power. So Definitely, like Mark said, he is an emperor without clothes. So Bree says, what else is part of your suit? Will you be asking for compensation for your counsel, for the people, for any repayment? No, this is not an economic lawsuit. This is not one where we're looking for a business kind of essentials or non-essentials and looking for lost compensation. You can go and bring a suit based upon, I think it's Amendment 14 for potential lost revenue or property in the future. This is not that suit. This is strictly very narrowly focused on religious liberties that have been violated under Jay Inslee's directive. He clearly admitted today that he does not have the power to make those directives and enforce them. So folks, you saw your constitutional rights upheld. You never lost your constitutional rights. They're always there, but we're having to prove, sadly, through the courts that he has taken steps to try to take those away from you, and he has failed. So you have freedom under the law. So remember, freed for governor and vote for freedom. Let me see if we have any more questions coming in here. I do appreciate you all jumping online right now. It's fun to be able to talk about these issues and know that having a defeat against Jay Inslee and Bob Ferguson is the first of many to come. Please follow our campaign at freedforgovernor.com. Continue to like our page and follow our page at Joshua Freed for Governor. Please take this opportunity, even while we're on this Facebook Live right now, to text a few of your friends and say, please go to Joshua Freed for Governor and like it. Link your page, jump on board. I want your support. I need your support. I can't do this alone, but together there's nothing we cannot accomplish. All right, so I've got a couple more questions here. How are you on the Second Amendment? My wife and I enjoy our Second Amendment rights each and every day. That is another constitutional right that we support. So, can we go to church or not? Leslie talked about this a little bit at the beginning. We have had a victory today in court, federal court. We went to court. The Attorney General and Bob Inslee had the opportunity to settle over the last 2 weeks to make it clear. And the judge put them on the spot and forced them today to recognize that Jay Inslee does not have power to enforce the unconstitutional directives that he's been pushing forward. So I would say quite clearly, you have the right to meet individually with your spiritual leader or someone else to do a Bible study. You have the rights to meet in groups. I don't know that we should press the point right now when it comes to churches of 1,000 or 1,500, because also you need to consider that there are people in the community that do have a lot of concerns, and you need to consider your witness in that. We're not people pleasers in the sense that we have to live our lives in fear of wondering what everyone else is thinking, but there also is some personal responsibility. So if you can meet in some groups and have social distancing or personal distancing, you can do so. You have that right. That's what we discovered in court today, and Jay Inslee will not be enforcing those. All right, so we had a lot of fun people on today, a great crowd. So we're gonna give away 4 gift cards today. And so let me check here about what we're gonna give away. Oh boy, we have so many people participating, it looks like from around the states. And so before, we've been giving stuff away from a couple regional areas around here. Sometimes we have 50, 60, 80, 90 people on board. When we pull the hat or pull the name, we're seeing some community they're from. But we got a lot of people from a lot of different places. So my team has seen your names. They've written all 400 names down or whatever we got here. Unbelievable fun. But all right, so the first is, can I keep this one for myself? The Gig Harbor Candy Company. And the winner is Nancy Hansen. Nancy, can do me a big favor and send an email to Jennifer@freedforgovernor.com. That's Jennifer@freedforgovernor.com. And give her your address and we'll get you that gift card for the Gig Harbor Candy Company. So we're gonna be going to Gig Harbor, right? Oh, yeah, we need to go to that candy company. All right. What? You guys know my heart. This is awesome. A Seattle Candy Company for gift card number 2. Everyone who knows me know that I'm pretty much addicted to sugar. It's something, it's a weakness. In order to have recovery, you admit your weakness. My weakness is I'm addicted to donuts, candy, and bakeries. All right, Seattle Candy Company. The winner is Jill Lucas. So Jill, can you email Jennifer@freedforgovernor.com? That's Jennifer@freedforgovernor.com. And then my wife's, one of her favorite places is Glossy Baby. So folks who love this, you're gonna love this. So the winner of our hat, Christy McPherson. Congratulations, you get a Glassy Baby. We'll pick that up for you or get you the gift card so you can pick it out yourself. Glassy Babies are kind of fun because they have all the names on the bottom and, you know, all the good feelings. Freedom, we're gonna find one that says freedom on the bottom. All right, and the fourth and final gift card for today. Thank you again for all of the hundreds of people that joined us online today. Please share this video. Once we get off, the video will be available on our Facebook page. Please share it. We want as many people to see this because it's extremely important that all people in Washington State understand what happened today. There is some, you know, concern. People thought that we dropped the lawsuit. Not the case at all. We actually have a major victory today. So I want to make sure that the fake media out there that's already trying to spin this in the governor's favor, that we can clearly share the truth that we beat Jay Inslee in court today, and Bob Ferguson too. So the fourth and final gift card of today, but join us next Friday, is the Woodinville Whiskey Company. So that's for Randy DePriest. Randy, will you email Jennifer@freedforgovernor.com. That's Jennifer@freedforgovernor.com. It's really important that you send your message to us. Also, it looks like you can send it through direct message if you want, but email is great as well. And so the direct message to me at Joshua Freed for Governor should be able to come to us that way. All right. This has been a lot of fun. I thank you so much for joining us. Fridays with Freed. Today is a day that we can know that we as people who are believing in religious liberty, that we had a victory against Jay Inslee, who's been acting as a bully during this period of time. And for those folks who work for Jay Inslee who are on this Facebook Live today, my plea to you right now is that you talk to Jay and let him know that people are suffering in Washington State. I know that he sits in his mansion behind closed doors. He sits behind the high walls that we pay for. He continues to take the salary that we provide, yet people in Washington State are suffering. People are literally starving. This is not a made-up statement. This is a reality. Please, you're next to Jay. Have some heart and tell him he needs to end the stay-at-home order. We need to get people back to work. We have 780,000 people on unemployment today. It's approaching 1 million. The population of Washington State is 7.5. Folks, this is a considerable amount of people that are suffering in Washington State today. Unemployment checks aren't coming to the time frame that they need. The federal checks are not coming as quickly as they were promising. We have 11 states in the nation that are still under lockdown. 11, that's it. 39 states are now coming out of the lockdown or fully out of the lockdown and the stay-at-home orders. Their economies are starting to pick up. Their families are able to go back to work. The landscapers, the beauticians, the retail establishments, the professionals, the people wanting to care for other people's kids so they can go back to work. That's the reality in every other state besides Washington and 10 other states. Folks, America is open. The world is open. Why is Jay Inslee taking his thumb and pressing it upon you? I must ask you, for those folks who have voted for Jay Inslee in the past, those folks that are watching me today on Jay Inslee's campaign because they know I'm the biggest threat to Jay Inslee, please have a heart for the people in Washington State. You claim to care for people. If that is true, let them work. All right, everyone, God bless you. Have a great weekend. We're moving forward in victory. Watch us on the trail. Please contribute to freedforgovernor.com to fuel us on our way. Share our videos. We're on a path toward victory on November 3rd. I'd appreciate your support and endorsement. God bless you all.